Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Andre back with another episode of Packed In Action Figure Reviews, where we give you that action that's packed in. And today we're going to be taking a look at the Marvel Legends series X-Men Marvel's Colossus and Juggernaut. Now, as many of you guys know, this 2-pack is actually a re-release. This figure was released back some time ago, but on the Hasbro Pulse website as well as the Big Bad Toy Store, we do see that they are reissuing this 2-pack, and I definitely think it's a great opportunity for those who were not able to get this 2-pack before, that they can get it now. And I also think it's a great opportunity to go over this figure just so we can re-review it and take a look at what we have here. So the first things first, we're going to take a look at the box art and see what we got. So starting off at the front of the box, we can see that we have an open window where we can clearly see the figures. I always like this because we can definitely take a closer look at any paint imperfections or any distortions to the figure. Luckily with mine, I didn't get one that was too bad. We do have the Marvel Legends series up top. We also do have the Marvel 80 years anniversary here, and we also do have the X-Men logo up top. We also do have the Marvel logo. Here on the side, we have some comic artwork of Colossus and Juggernaut going at it at the top, and we have a solo portrait of him in the middle, and some more fighting on the side with Juggernaut. And on the right side of the box, we also have some more comic artwork of the Juggernaut in all his glory. And on the back, we also have some more comic artwork along with a little description of each character. For Colossus, it reads, "A mutant with the ability to transform his body into metal. Peter Rasputin left his farm community to join the X-Men and fight for good." And for the Juggernaut, it reads, "Cain Marko possesses superhuman strength and extreme durability that allows him to rampage through any situation as an unstoppable juggernaut of force." And man, I really gotta say, I really definitely dig the boxes that come with these 2-packs, man. They could have easily just given us, a standard box, but I definitely like the attention to detail by adding these descriptions and just the comic artwork, so that way we can kind of get a reference of what these figures are actually based off of. And with all of that being said, let's get these guys out of the box and take a closer look at what we're really dealing with. And here we have Colossus and Juggernaut going at it, man. And I can definitely say that if you didn't get the opportunity to get it the first time when it was first released, please get this the second time if it's still available on Hasbro Pulse or the Big Bad Toy Store. I haven't checked it to see if it's available still, but this 2-pack is definitely a must-have. Is it perfect? No, but there's definitely a lot of boxes that it definitely checks that we're gonna definitely take a look at. So without further ado, let's take a closer look. So first things first, we're gonna go ahead and take a look at the accessories that come with Colossus, and as we can see, they're pretty standard. You know what I'm saying? We do have a pair of grasping hands, and we can see that they're quite detailed. We can see the engraving in the arms, in the hands. You can see the indentation of the engraving of the lines that cover his whole entire body. And then we also do have some, what looks like to be some kind of like brass knuckles on his knuckles, I guess, to cause more damage when he fights. But they're very detailed, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm very pleased. And just the paint work on this, you can definitely see that, it's a metallic kind of chrome kind of sheen. I definitely think, that's definitely really good. And then we also have our standard fisted hands as well that come with almost every other Marvel Legend. For a moment of critique, I would definitely say that maybe it would have helped if we did get an additional head sculpt. The head sculpt that Colossus comes with is more so of a neutral face, and considering that we know that Colossus does go up against Juggernaut quite a few times, it would have been nice if maybe we had maybe like an angry face or just him showing teeth. But I think, for what we get, not that bad. And taking a closer look at the figure itself, I can definitely say I'm very pleased with the head sculpt of this figure. It's unmistakably Colossus or Peter Rasputin or whatever you want to call him, man. I'm definitely very pleased with the head sculpt. Unfortunately for mine, I do have 2 scratches at the top. Unfortunately, when I was picking this up, I was not able to see that. But apart from that, man, you know, just the attention to the detail, man, just the grimace on his face, man, I definitely think it captures, you know, the likeness of Colossus from the comics exceptionally well. And you know, that's definitely something I have to give my hats off to Hasbro for doing. And moving right along to the rest of the body, we can definitely see that, man, this figure was sculpted very, very well. Taking a closer look at his costume, we do get the classic yellow and red that we see time and time again. I mean, if he's not wearing yellow and red, is it really Colossus? You know what I'm saying? So we do have some nice sculpt detail here. Taking a look at some of the wrinkles, we also do have some more wrinkles here towards the chest piece area. And then we also have some wrinkles here in the abdominal area. And man, you know, I'm very pleased with the paint work on this figure, man. You know what I'm saying? Just looking at the sheen, you know, just as my lights bounce off this figure, man, you can just definitely see that this really is Colossus, man. You know, the only thing I would really say is that, you know, maybe he could be a little bit taller. I do happen to have the Marvel Select Colossus, which to me, you know, it's a heavily underrated figure. It doesn't have as much articulation as this, but I was able to mod mine. But just taking a look at this figure, man, you know, we do have the X belt here. You know what I'm saying? And it is a separate piece, so it can be removed if that's something that you would want to do. Then taking a closer look here at his legs, I do have a little bit of paint chip here at the tip of it, but you know, it's not gonna, you know, kill me or anything like that. Then over here, taking a look here at his boots, we do have a little bit of muscle definition in the calf area. It would have been nice if maybe we had a little bit of wrinkle at the toes, but you know, that's just me being nitpicky. One of the things that I did see that's a little bit bothersome to me, it's may not be bothersome to most. I do feel like the fists are a little on the small side. These cuffs here that you see, they are removable, and if we do remove them, you're gonna see that the arms, the fists are kind of small. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm tripping. What do you guys think? Do you think his fists are small? Looking at it like this, I feel like it looks okay, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Maybe if I show him with both fists on, maybe that'll give you guys a better idea of what I mean. But his fists, for some reason, seem like they're a bit small. Not a deal breaker for me, but just something to note. It's not super noticeable, but it's definitely something that, you know, I would like to bring out. And then taking a look at the back of the figure, we do definitely see that muscle definition on the back, man. I mean, Hasbro definitely did their thing with this, man. I like the fact that here, taking a look at the hinges, they decided that they were going to paint the bottom portion of the hinge red, so that way it matches with his boots. And then they painted the upper portion of the hinge silver, that way it matches with his thighs. And man, you know, this figure here, man, I mean, this is Colossus, bro. I mean, it doesn't get more colossal than that. Now, taking a look at his articulation, I definitely think that this Colossus is definitely well articulated. I do have my preferences in which I wish could have been, but of course we have to take what we get. So first things first, taking a look at the head articulation, we can see that Colossus can look up. His head is on a ball peg and hinge, so he can look about this far up, which I think is pretty good. Colossus is a pretty tall dude, so most of the time he's going to be looking down on his foes, but you know, occasionally when he has to fight guys like Colossus, when he's going to have to fight guys like Juggernaut, he's going to have to look up. So he has a pretty decent range of motion going up, and he can also look down about this much as well, which I think is also pretty good since he is going to be looking down on his foes. He does have very slight pivot. I mean, you're really not gonna get much, but his head does go left, right, which is really good. Then moving on to the arms, his arms can go all the way out. Luckily, there's not that much hindrance with the shoulder pads there. I don't want to say it goes all the way out, but it goes out far enough for Colossus. You know, he's a pretty big guy. Not to say that he's not flexible, but you know, his arms do go out about this much. They do go all the way down to his side, so you know we're not gonna have to deal with any kind of like weird awkward situations where the arms are kind of stuck like this, which I'm really happy about, because that Blade figure that we got, man, those arms were really killer for me, bro. But yes, his arms do go all the way out. Unfortunately, we don't have double jointed elbows, which I definitely think would have been wonderful, but he does get range that goes about this much. It's less than 90 degrees, which I kind of honestly wish they could go up a little bit more, but that's about as far as the range of motion that you're going to get from both sides. He also does have bicep swivel, which is really good. It goes around 360. And again, we also do have ab crunch. The ab crunch goes down this much, so you can get him looking down. Let me get his arms down so you guys get a better view. So he can crunch far down like that, and he can crunch up like this. Only thing is, when he crunches up, there is going to be a slight gappage here in the middle. Not really a big deal, but there is sculpting that continues on into the abdominal areas going up into the paint. Unfortunately, now that I look at it, I do see that I do have a little bit of paint chip here on the end, but because he's going to be mostly stood like this for most poses, it's not really something that you are going to see. Then coming down to the waist, he can twist at the waist. The belt kind of does get in the way, but if you push it high up, you know, it's not going to be so bad. He'll just have a high waist belt. I kind of like my belt to kind of sit in the middle where it kind of hides the cut of the articulation. Then going over here into the thigh, he does have thigh swivel. It does go around 360. And he also does have double jointed knees that go quite back, you know, good range of motion. And then for the legs, we don't have any calf swivel, which I think would have been great, but because we have the thigh cut, you know, I think that kind of makes up for it. And then for the feet, they do go down that much. They can go up, not as far as they go down, but he also does have ankle pivot where he can go side to side as well. And moving right along to some size comparisons, we have the Juggernaut over there to the left, and the Juggernaut definitely should be taller than Colossus, so that's definitely something that I'm relatively happy. You know, they're not too close in height. Juggernaut definitely towers over Colossus as it should be. And then we also have our standard 6-inch Spider-Man over there to the right, which, you know, I definitely feel like it checks out. My personal nitpick is that, you know, my Colossus would probably be a little bit taller, because when you put him next to other figures like Cable, you'll see that Cable is somewhat relatively close in height to Colossus, and personally, I don't think Cable should be that tall next to Colossus. In the comics, I think they say Cable's about 6'8", and a fully armored Colossus is about 7'5". I think if we were to take the measurements, we'll see that, oh, no, that shut me up. We see that Colossus actually stands at, I want to say 7.5 inches, which, since this is a 1/12 scale, I guess that would be 7.5 feet. And if we were to take a look at Cable, he stands at almost 7 feet. So yes, about 7 feet. So again, my only nitpick with this Colossus, as great as a figure it is, I definitely do wish he would be taller. Matter of fact, let's take a quick snap. Boom, and there goes the money. That Colossus over there to the right is the Marvel Select Colossus, and I definitely feel like it scales a little bit better with the rest of the X-Men. Now, of course, looking at it side by side next to the Juggernaut, you're gonna see that Juggernaut and Colossus are roughly about the same size, which it really shouldn't be. So that would really be the only issue if you had your Juggernaut fighting the Marvel Select Colossus. But if you happen to have the Marvel Select Juggernaut, that Juggernaut is actually taller than the Marvel Select, so those two figures would actually scale relatively well. Just to kind of show you guys what I'm talking about, here is Wolverine standing next to the Marvel Legends Colossus, and you know, Colossus should be, you know, tall, but then when you put him next to the Marvel Select, I mean, Colossus is towering over this dude. And you know, to me, Colossus should be like tall. You know, the man is 7'5". So that's just something to think about, you know, if you are, you know, a person who is very nitpicky about, you know, scaling and everything like that. But if that's something that doesn't bother you, then I think that this Colossus that we got with Marvel Legends is definitely you know, sufficient for most of us collectors who just want to have, you know, a nice X-Men collection. And here's Colossus next to the Nightcrawler, and I decided I was going to put the two Colossuses on the left and the right and put regular X-Men in the middle, just to kind of give you guys a better comparison of scaling. So that's Nightcrawler in the middle. We've got Iceman, we've got our 3-pack love triangle Cyclops, we've got Jubilee, and we've also got Bishop. So again, as you guys can see, all depending on your preference when it comes down to the correct scaling, it's ultimately going to be up to you and your discretion as far as which Colossus you would think would fit better in your X-Men collection. So all in all, I definitely think that this figure is executed exceptionally well. Hasbro definitely delivered on this figure, man. You know, Colossus sculpt, his paint work, the, you know, the metallic, the chrome, the sheen, I mean, it just screams a good figure, man. If I had to give it a score out of 10, I'd give it a 9. Guys, you got to get this figure if you don't have it. Next up, we're gonna take a look at the Juggernaut, and just first impressions, just looking at it, man, posed up, man, this Juggernaut figure definitely delivers, but we're gonna get a little bit more detailed. But first things first, let's take a look at his accessories. So jumping right into the accessories, one of the first things that we see is this head sculpt here, man, and I'm definitely very pleased with the amount of detail that is in this. You know, Kane Marco's face definitely looked like he got messed up, bro. You know, him and Colossus were definitely going at it. I like the attention to the detail, you know, even the coloring in the eye. You see here, this eye is all white, but then you look here with the black eye, you see that it's a little pink, you know. So I definitely think that, you know, the attention to detail is definitely something that helps this figure pop. And then taking a look at the head sculpt here, we do see that there's a little bit of black wash to kind of help bring out those details in the hair, to make it a little bit more, you know, realistic, to make it stand out a little bit more. Then you have the wrinkles on the face and even the busted lip here on the right. And then we also have the mask that's busted up. And what I like about this is that if we actually put the head inside, and I'm gonna put it on the body, but I just want to do it like this, you can actually see his eye from there, so it lines up perfectly, you know what I'm saying? So if you do want some versatility in your poses and everything like that for photography or however you may see fit, this right here is phenomenal. Then taking a look over at the arms, excuse me, the hands are very detailed as well. These can't come off. They can come off on these hands here. They're sculpted on these fists, but you know, his fists are closed, so I wouldn't see any reason why you would want to take that off anyways. And then just taking a look at the hand, man, you know, just looking at the veins, man, it's very, very detailed. And you know, they didn't skip out here, you know, you do see his nails and everything like that. So the attention to detail with the fist, man, is phenomenal. Then coming over here to the open hands, these actually do come off, I believe. Let me try. Yes, they do come off. So if you wanted to make a custom with arms, you know, just grasping by itself, you do have that option. Again, you do have the fingernails and the veins in there, man, and you know, it fits really, really, really good. Now taking a look at the aesthetic of the figure, man, this Juggernaut definitely delivers. I mean, I don't know what much more I could really say. You know, when most of us think of Juggernaut, man, we think of this big, towering behemoth of a figure. And I definitely think this is the case when it comes down to this release with Hasbro. Just taking a closer look at it, man. First things first, I want to point out this head sculpt, man. And I think they did a very good job with the head sculpt. A small detail to note that they actually did, which I think is pretty cool, is since he's wearing his helmet, his face naturally on the inside is going to be a little bit of a darker tone. I'm not gonna lie to you, when I first seen it, I thought there was discoloration, but then when I kind of used my brain, the logic made sense as to why his face would look like that. And then if we look at his teeth, we do see that there is some kind of gap. I'm not sure if every other person's Juggernaut looks like that, but mine definitely has like what looks like to be a chipped tooth. Then coming over down here to the body, we can see all of this muscle definition, man. And I'm very pleased with this Juggernaut, man. Juggernaut is supposed to be a huge unstoppable force powered by the Sidorak gem. So we definitely want to make him impressionable and intimidating. Then he also has these straps here on his arms. Looking at the flesh tone of his skin, we see that he has veins here, and he also has veins here in his forearms. These straps are removable, so if you did want to take these off, you could. And these here are removable here as well. We already took a look at the hands during the accessories, so we're gonna just kind of skip over that for now, but it's more or less the same thing here on this side. Then taking a look here at the abdominals, I would say maybe there should be a black border here, but I guess I kind of understand with the ab articulation maybe why that was not put there. As far as reference, the only thing I think that this Juggernaut would be missing is maybe his belt. That's probably the only thing I could think of from the top of my head. Then going over here down to the legs, he has these stubby legs, as he should. I'm saying, a lot of muscle definition in there, man. You know what I'm saying? Then we take a look at his boots. I personally think compared to his body, maybe the feet are a little bit on the small side, but he is able to stand no problem, and he is well balanced. Then taking a look at the back of the figure, man, you know what I'm saying? Looking at the muscle definition here, it would have been nice if they would have maybe cut into the sculpt there and maybe gave him butterfly joints. But being that this is a reissue of a reissue, because the previous Juggernaut that we got was, I believe, I don't remember the wave. If one of you guys can tell me the wave, that would be pretty dope. Then to do a quick head swap, we can put the Kano Marco head on there, and it sits perfectly, man. I mean, I think it looks really, really good. And then if you wanted to take up, a step further and put on that mask, the battle damage mask, we can see that, it looks just as good. Let me see if I can get the eye to line up into the mask. Let's see here. Boom. And as you can see, his eye is in there, and everything is like that. The only downside really is if you're going to be moving his head up or down, there's going to be some gappage there, but we'll go over more of that when we're dealing with the articulation. But going back to the boots here, you know what I'm saying, we do see the treading on there, man. It's really good. Just a very overall well done figure, man. Definitely a very well done figure. Now jumping straight into articulation, man, because this is a big figure, with most big figures, you guys know that the articulation is going to be somewhat limited, but I still think that we get a pretty decent amount of range of motion with this Juggernaut, especially if we're going to compare it to the Marvel Select Juggernaut, which that is just a brick of a figure. I do like the detailing and on the paint on that one though. But starting off with the head can go up about this much. Juggernaut is not going to really be looking up unless he's looking up to the Hulk or something like that, depending on which iteration of the comic you read. But his head goes up about that much. I've always been curious about how Juggernaut moves his head. I know in certain movies he has like an extra collar piece that guards his mask, so that way he can turn his head freely left and right. That would have been a nice little touch here, but these are action figures, so we have to be realistic and understandable. So he can look up about that much, and he can look down about that much. The only downside with him looking down is sometimes you're going to see a little bit of gappage here and there, but not really a big deal for the most part. Then going to the arms, his arms do go about this much out. I'm being very careful with how far I move them out. I think that because this mold was a Build-A-Figure, one thing that I must let you guys know is that these arms pop out relatively very easy, and I think it is because it was a Build-A-Figure. But you do have to put a little bit of pressure on there. It's not gonna, move if I hit it or anything like that, but just something to note. Then going to the elbows, they bend about this much. So it's about the same range of motion as Colossus. Again, these are big guys, so the flexibility is gonna be a little bit limited. These are single jointed elbows, they are not double jointed, so bear that in mind. Then going down to the ab articulation, he does look quite down, and I can definitely see, comparing it to the Marvel Select, this is really, really, really good. And then he can also look back about this much, so not so much on the back, but really more so on the down, which I think is a phenomenal range of motion. Then coming over here to the waist, he does have 360 waist, so that's definitely really good. Before I forget, he does have wrist that can bend down and up on both sides. Taking it back down here to the thighs, he does have a thigh cut, and what I like about this thigh cut is where most thigh cuts are here for most figures, they decided to put the thigh cut on like with the ball joint. So I think it's really cool, and it can rotate relatively decently. It can go 360, but you want to be careful with this part of the figure rubbing into the inner course of his crouch. He does not have double jointed knees, which is kind of expected with these size of figures, but it does bend about that much. So you can get him into running poses, and as you can see, his legs do go down about that much, and they do come up not as far as they go back, but they do go up. But you can get him standing comfortably, and you can get him in running positions, and he also does have ankle pivot. And heading right down over to the size comparisons, I can definitely say that I'm very well pleased with the scaling of this Juggernaut. If we take a look over to the left, we see the Marvel Select Juggernaut, and we see that they roughly stand side by side, which was really surprising to me. But I definitely feel like comparing it to the Marvel Select figure, it brings back my point when I was talking about the feet on the Marvel Legends Juggernaut. You can definitely see the foot size. Here is smaller, here is significantly bigger. That would be my only really nitpick with this Juggernaut figure, but again, it's not a deal breaker. And then over to my right, I have the Marvel Select Immortal Hulk, I believe. And I like the fact that my Hulk is taller than the Juggernauts, as it should be. When I think of the Hulk, the Hulk is, depending on which iteration of, that we're reading, the Hulk should be huge as well. But I definitely like the size, you know what I'm saying, comparing it to two Marvel Select figures. Marvel Legends definitely did a very good job with the scaling of this figure, and I definitely think that it definitely screams Juggernaut, you know what I'm saying? And here we have Juggernaut next to another big giant of ours, the Blob. And I think that the scaling between the Blob and the Juggernaut works out perfectly. I think the Blob should be shorter than the Juggernaut, but they are two pretty big dudes, so I think the scaling is actually pretty on point. And here we've got Colossus next to Juggernaut, both the Legends and the Select. And again, I think the Select scales better. Referring to the Colossus, I think the Select Colossus scales better with the rest of the X-Men, but I feel like scaling him next to the Marvel Legends Juggernaut, he's a little bit too tall. But if we were to move the Colossus next to the Marvel Select, you will see that the Marvel Select is actually taller than the Marvel Select Juggernaut is taller than the Marvel Select Colossus, which in my opinion it should be. So again, I think, all depending on your preference on how you like your characters. If height is not a big issue for you, then, who really cares? But if you're, a nitpicker or a stickler for things like these, then that's just something that you should take into consideration. I feel like, I got to do my due diligence to you guys as a community, because I know some of us are just casual collectors, and I know some of us are very detailed about our shit. So, I hope this helps to tickle your fancy. If you did want to see both Marvel Select and Marvel Legends side by side, this is pretty much what we're looking at. And again, it's going to be personal preference. It's going to be dependent on you, how you want your figure to be scaled. If scaling is not a big issue for you, who cares, man? These figures are all nice in general. So the question is, if I had to rate this figure out of a 10, what would I give it? I definitely say this figure deserves a 9. And when it comes down to the sculpting of the figure, when it comes down to the minuscule details that most, figures would overlook, down to the straps, you can see the indentation on the straps on his arms, the coloration of his face, being shadowed from the mask. I mean, this is a very phenomenal figure. Comparing it to the previous Marvel Legends Juggernaut, which was a Build-A-Figure, this one is definitely miles and miles better than that one. So if I had to give it out of a 10, I'd give it a 9. So coming down to my final concluding thoughts, this is an easy must grab. You gotta have it. Don't pass this up. There's a reason why Hasbro and the Big Bad Toy Store are reissuing this masterpiece of a 2-pack figure. Although I gave each figure a 9 because they do fall short, in my opinion, with certain things. Overall, because you're getting 2, I'm gonna have to easily give this 2-pack a 10. 10 out of 10. Don't pass up on this, guys. I had got my 2-pack Juggernaut and Colossus off of eBay, actually, and I had to pay eBay prices. So if you can get it for, the price range that they're selling it to you at the Big Bad Toy Store or Hasbro Pulse, definitely consider it. You know what I'm saying? This is a phenomenal 2-pack. You're definitely getting your bang for your buck. And, what else more can I say? Go and get it. What's wrong with you? So I want to take the time to personally thank every single one of you who stood it through and watched this entire review. I know it's a lot of information, but if you are just like me and you are going to determine if whether or not you buy a figure based off of a review, I want to make sure that I'm giving you guys, the most honest critiques that I can give for these figures. So once again, thank you for checking out my channel, Packed In Action Figure Reviews, where we give you that action that's packed in. Stay tuned for the next episode.